Hi, Todd here from Urban Sound Studio, and today we're taking a look at patching using the Korg MS-20. Now the right-hand side of the MS-20 is a little complex. It involves a Patchbay, but we're going to start from the basics and see how to start with a single cable to get some single routing down, and by the end, we're going to create some nice complex patches. Now I'm using the Korg MS-20 FS, which is the limited edition, but these same techniques will apply for the Korg MS-20 Mini, or vintage MS-20, or even software MS-20s. So let's jump on in, see how to set up some basic patching, and by the end, you'll be in good shape. So let's jump into how we get started with some patching. So simply put, nothing is going to work on this right-hand side if you don't learn how it works on the left-hand side. So we have a sound. So let's start by taking our modulation wheel and see how we could patch that to different parts. So we'll start by patching the modulation wheel to total. In total, we'll control oscillator 1, VCO 2, our high pass filter, and low pass filter. So if I play a note and adjust the modulation wheel, nothing happens. But if I take the total external, bring it up, this will control how little or how much the frequency modulation is affected. We can also do the same thing with our cutoff frequencies. So let's take the high pass filter and bring up the total. And let's do the same thing with our low pass. And of course, you could have the wheel controlling the low and high pass filters together. And even control your filters and frequency modulation. And this can lead to really cool effects. Now, if we only want to control our VCO, we could switch it over and connect it directly into the VCO. And now you're going to need to use the knob at the bottom marked external. If we left the top knob up, it'll be controlled by the modulation generator because it's marked MG. And if we want to control only our high pass filter, we could do the same thing. Take the cable and connect it to the high pass filter frequency input. And if we want to do the same thing with our low pass filter, we look for low pass filter and connect it there. Now last is our amplifier, and you can see that the amplifier is marked 0 to 5. And our mod wheel is labeled -5 to +5. So this means it's only going to affect things on the positive side of the mod wheel. And while I know my mod wheel's out of the framing right now, you could hear that I'm giving a little boost as I push past that middle mark on the mod wheel. Now we skipped over something that says external signal in. Let's see what that does. Let's take our pink noise and route it to external signal in. And if you want to do white noise, you could switch over to white noise. You could even do something like take the headphone jack and route it to the external signal in for a little bit of feedback. And this will drive your signal a little bit harder. But what if we want to control how much white or pink noise we have? So let's take our pink noise and route it to this separate amplifier here. We'll connect the pink noise out and connect it to the VCA in. And we're going to come out of the amplifier into the external signal in. So pink noise out into the amplifier, out of the amplifier into the external signal in, but we need one last thing, which is a control input. So let's control it with our mod wheel and take the mod wheel out and then input it to the control. Now the mod wheel controls the amount of noise. And if we want to use white noise instead, boom, move it over. What if we want to use our modulation generator to control something? Let's take our modulation generator out and run it into oscillator 1, oscillator 2. And once again, if we take our bottom knob and turn it up for our frequency modulation, you'll hear it. Now that may not seem like a big deal because you could already do that up here on this top knob without any patching. But what is a big deal is we can now use something like a pulse wave instead. And we could start to simulate a sample and hold type of sound from this. Or you could use it in a more traditional manner to create trills and things like that. Let's try something totally different. We could take something like our momentary button and run it into envelope generator 1. And now using that bottom knob of the frequency modulation, we can now have it so that the button actually gives us a change in note. Once again, you can't see me hitting the button, but you could definitely hear it. With some adjustments on the envelope generator 1, we could use the momentary button to get different types of slides and actually use it as a separate type of control. Different than portamento, but similar. And with a long attack time, you could get the sound of an engine kind of revving up, and with a nice long release time, you could get this decay where the pitch just drops. We also have the ability to patch a trigger output of the keyboard or even a trigger input if you're using an external sequencer. We have keyboard CV out, so we could take the control voltage of the note of the keyboard and have that control something. We also have the ability to have a reverse envelope where it adjusts the polarity of the envelope. Let's take a look at one last tip. Here's how you can set up the MS-20 as a paraphonic synthesizer. Let's take the trigger output and let's have that trigger output trigger the clock of our sample and hold. Let's have the keyboard control voltage out go into the sample and hold. And the output of our sample and hold will control VCO2. So now we could play this mono synth as if it's a duophonic synth. So as you start patching, I would begin with using the total input. Make sure to adjust the correct knob in the correct location. Start with the modulation wheel and then try the momentary button. Even try some noise generator. And then underneath there's an entire external signal processor that we haven't even dived into. So we'll save that for a whole separate video. Thanks for checking this out. Hopefully this helps you get patching with some basics and experimenting on your own.